On this week's show, Harmony Ginger strikes a sour note. Grubkiller thinks all the OSR wants is dead characters. Sandy Peterson is misaligned again. Cirsova has apparently never read Lord of the Rings. A disastrous Homo is oppressed by Worldbuilding. And don't get me started on the amount of automotive knowledge that OTH Widgeteer has brought to us. I'm Daniel, and we have got a host of topics to cover this week on Intelligence is a Dump Stat. Please subscribe if you've not already. Like, hype, and share this video with a friend or two. Drop in the comments and share your thoughts on what gave you a need for BC headache powder this week. And if you want to see someone win a free custom-built car, remember that all the supers and Patreon and membership revenue from this channel goes exclusively to that end. Pitch in and get to watch your dollars work alongside my sweat and swearing to give back to someone in our tiny little corner of the internet. That said, we will get on with the show after a word from my sponsor, me. You like pulp literature? Do you miss the adventures of Conan and Call and the epic journeys of Frodo and Druss the Legend, the introspective challenges of Deckard and Case? Well, none of us claim to write on that level, but the guys who joined me to put together Corvid Codex certainly did our best to honor those great writers who came before us, and now we need your help. Hop over to the Kickstarter link in the description below and sign up for one or more of the pulp anthologies that we will be releasing periodically throughout the year. Volume 1 has 7 fantastic stories with art from 2 top-class TTRPG indie artists, Patty from Patty's Parlor and Rob Necronomicon. We will print in beautiful premium paperback to give you something that will read well on your nightstand and look great on your bookshelf. So now, hit the Kickstarter, help us out. On with the show as we explore the dumbest things that I saw in the TTRPG ecosystem this week. We start with a little friendly fire. Harmony Ginger is a genuine sweetheart. She is everything Jenny D likes to pretend that she is, but isn't. She's a girl next door with a pleasant disposition and a real love for gaming who isn't out to farm ad revenue on the back of, hee hee, I'm a gamer girl. But that doesn't mean that she's immune to saying stupid shit. See, Harmony is pretty big into the emergent low to no prep bro SR adjacent style of play, and as such she says things like collaborative world building invests everyone in a setting and lets the whole group add to the setting, which is true, at least in a world where that is what all the players actually want. Unfortunately, she follows it up with stuff like the best campaign settings aren't marketable because they're so personal to the groups that created them. I believe that both Dragonlance and Greyhawk would like a word. 2 nearly universally beloved campaign settings that emerged from someone's table and are a far sight better and more marketable than 99% of the player-created personal worlds out there. Here's the thing. There's a kernel of truth that she has here. What many gamers do not seem to understand is that a lot of the gaming table stories that you love, remember, and find so incredible are in fact only incredible because you were part of them. That character who was so hilarious, guess what? The rest of us are just like, yeah, dude, sure, it's funny, cool stuff. Same with some of the crazy things that happen in the world around your characters. It meant something when your paladin sacrificed himself to save the party. To you. Because you were there and part of it. The rest of us don't care. That said, the best campaign settings are the ones that feel real and that can come just as easily from collaborative development and intentional development. And the same thing that sold the concept of that world to your players to start with can just as easily be used to sell it to the buying public. Harmony's misstep here is confusing the moments that make the campaign special with the features that make a setting special, and those are neither mutually inclusive nor mutually exclusive. Next out we have Grubkiller. Now, I have no idea who this is, but based on his reply to Grand DM, it makes me think that I'm better off for not knowing him. Dude is a 5-follower troll account with nothing but ass-take replies to largely OSR accounts. Grand had said that GMs wearing kids' gloves doesn't go unnoticed by the players, and that once they figure it out, the tension fades and the stakes disappear. This dimwit replies with, "Boring, you retards all talk about outcomes and just want one hit, no save death traps and unwinnable encounters in your OSR circle jerk mega dungeons." Yeah, that's the kind of brainiac that we're dealing with here. Dude thinks OSR play is that episode of Dexter's Laboratory where he just spends the entire game cheating to kill his player characters. I wonder if it's actually a Wizards of the Coast designer burner account trying desperately to attack old school D&D because they screwed it up so bad nobody wants to play it anymore, except for the purple-haired femlit majors who are currently spending all of their disposable income getting bailed out after ICE arrests them for blowing a whistle in their face for a week and a half. I've played with a ton of old school gamers. And when you die? When you do something idiotic. Like when you open your mouth and say anything similar to the bovine excrement that pours out a Grubkiller's account. He might want to change his name, though, since the Grubs are quite safe with their 9 death saves and 2 gold in-town resurrections. Sandy Peterson returns to the show this week. Now, generally, Sandy is a font of fantastic insight and information. He's one of the most accomplished, respected, and prolific game designers in the TTRPG space, with some of the biggest pen and paper games to his credit, along with a host of paradigm-shifting PC titles as well. But Sandy has more than a few blind spots, and when he's wrong, boy, is he ever wrong. Aside from his practically illiterate takes on Lord of the Rings, and his complete whitewashing of H.P. Lovecraft's less savory personality traits, Sandy just can't seem to put 2 intelligent sentences together regarding alignment in TTRPGs. Now, I'm not saying that alignment is a must-have. Tons of great games have no alignment mechanics, and in fact, my own D30 game lacks an alignment mechanic. But Peterson's take on alignment is the kind of thing that will actually make you question his fantastic insight on anything else related to the games we love. Now, I'm not going to delve into the weeds on this. I have hours of content specifically on alignment on this channel that you can check out if you want to get my thoughts. However, Sandy just has the worst takes consistently, and largely because he relies entirely on 2 claims. He never needed it in his old D&D games, and bad players who don't use it properly or as intended means that the mechanic must be bad. This is asinine. Okay, Sandy, your Call of Cthulhu system uses D100 roll under to determine success. Does that mean that D100 roll under is meaningless and stupid system that adds nothing to the game because some player out there adds an additional D100 to make it a D1000 roll under to succeed? Is your insanity mechanic garbage because it relies heavily on player RP input, and these players over here always seem to go crazy in very convenient ways that serve the party's purposes instead of, ways that make sense for them to go crazy? Sandy is out here saying that a socket wrench is a shitty tool because the people he knows use it to drive nails. Moving right along down the yellow brick road of brainless hot takes, we find our idiotic Tolkien take of the week. Cirsova, a Bro SR account by all appearances, entered into one of the various Appendix N arguments for the day. It seems that the mental midgets from the camp of B-dubs have decided that their current engagement farming strategy will be to minimize the Lord of the Rings impact on the development of D&D. It's led to a lot of really stupid comments across the board, but this one is quite the head-scratcher. You see, the part that D&D owed most to Tolkien is multiple adventuring parties in large PvP domain games with PvP and strict timekeeping. Has this idiot ever even read the back cover of a Tolkien book? Timekeeping? There's only one time that specific dates and times really mattered in any of Tolkien's works, and that was The Hobbit when the light had to shine on the secret door to the back of the Lonely Mountain. Multiple party domain level PvP? What book were you reading? Hell, that is a massive stretch even for the Silmarillion, which isn't mentioned as one of the books in Appendix N. In Lord of the Rings, the entire point was to avoid Sauron and have the single party deliver the ring to the mountain's fire. Even after that, the major battles were certainly not player versus player domain play unless you were under the incredibly retarded notion that the players would be both the Nazgul and the Fellowship. This is more of a stretch. It really is. This is more than a stretch, really. This is like the Bro SR version of that guy who sees his favorite conspiracy theory and everything. You know, the guy who thinks that George Bush bent over to tie his shoe in Dealey Plaza, and that was a message that JFK was actually killed by aliens. Our quest to find the lowest possible IQ at which a human being can function well enough to type comments on the internet takes us next to Mos Eisley Spaceport. Oh, shit, I'm sorry. I forgot that we did, in fact, find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy than Mos Eisley. Blue Sky. Now, don't worry, I didn't actually go on Blue Sky. No need to have concerns for what diseases I may have contracted. I saw this in the clean room behind the safety glass of a Facebook group where it was posted for right and just mockery. Disaster Homo, a person who likely had a lifelong ambition to get invited to Epstein Island, has a very interesting view on world building. And by interesting, I mean it is a wonder how this individual got their head that far up their ass. World building is fascist, guys. That's right. It's fascist because it refuses to allow space for the reader to imagine their own vision for the world that you made to tell your story in. The world is communal and shared. How dare you oppress me by not allowing me to use your creation for my own idiotic wish fulfillment and pandering? I'm sorry, but fascist is a word that no longer holds any meaning. It is now simply a red flag that the person using it is not to be taken seriously in any capacity, and that you should simply remind them that you asked for large fries and that it's their night to scrub behind the grease trap. Rounding out our evening, we turn to OTH Widgeteer over on X and a little automotive fun. Now, he seems like a good guy, and the meme did explicitly call for wrong answers only, but the fact that he called this starter unit an unexploded World War II ordnance kind of had to get called out. I mean, as a man, it should be impossible to say this. The very soul of your virility should scream and prevent you from misidentifying a very basic fix-it-in-your-driveway car part. But given that we have folks like old disaster Homo back there who unironically see a picture of earplugs and yell rubber bullets while screaming in terror at the AR-15 clip they found at a school that is obviously a nail gun magazine, it kind of has to get called out here. Joe Dirt done strapped himself to the poo-poo nuke here, boys. He says it's a bomb, but it's just a septic tank. And yet somehow it is less full of shit than the other takes that made it on the list. Anyway, it is time to seek out the blessed white powder of relief, and I don't mean that stuff that Gary Gygax used while trying to sell D&D cartoons in California. And since it has been asked to me by more than one person here recently, yes, BC headache powder is in fact an absolute miracle that works better than just about anything for quick headache relief. It is not just a King of the Hill reference that I use in every episode of Intelligence is a Dump Stat. So on that terrible disappointment, it's time to end. See you guys next time.